Good evening, and welcome to Upzone, where understanding politics is made simple. Today, we are here to talk with candidates who are running for Fayetteville mayor and for city council in the municipal elections. Elections will take place on November the 7th. That is Election Day. However, one stop voting will begin on October 19th and run through November 4th. You can do one stop voting at the Board of Elections and Cliffdale Recreation Center. But please, before you go and vote, go to the Cumberland County Board of Elections and check the time and your polling place. You can also download your ballot to see who is running for office before you go and cast your vote. But hopefully, you're listening in today so that you can learn more about the candidates before you go and cast your vote. Today, we are going to be talking to candidates who are running for city council and mayor. And we have with us today candidates from District 1, District 3, District 2, District 5, and District 9. We are going to start with District 3 and District 1. The candidates will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we will start talking about the issues. First, we will start with Mr. Alex Rodriguez, candidate for City Council District 1.
Good evening, Fayetteville. Thank you, Upzone crew, for having me and hosting this event. I'm Alex Rodriguez. I ran last year for District 1 unsuccessfully, and I'm running again this year, hopefully a little bit more successful. Again, I'm a 20-year veteran of the Armed Forces, Army, stationed here at Fort Bragg for most of those 20 years. Retired here, father of, married for almost 28 years in a couple of weeks. Father of two, grandfather of two, and all of them growing up here in Fayetteville. We've decided to make this our home, and I'm running to make Fayetteville a better place. Right now, Fayetteville, along with a large chunk of the country's headed in the wrong direction. We need to change at all levels to turn it around. Fayetteville right now is having financial issues because they're spending too much money for unnecessary things at City Hall. They're also not being very transparent as far as issues, as far as anything going on in the community or anything not happening or going on at City Hall. Also, there's a crime wave going on. I mean, can everybody out there honestly say they're better off now than they were 1, 2, or 3 years ago? So then why do we keep electing the same people over and over and expecting different results? So again, I'm Alex Rodriguez. I'm running for District 1. Let's get some change out there, and we need to change a lot of the City Hall. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Mr. Mario Benavente.
Hello, everyone. To the Upzone audience, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak on my reelection campaign. My name is Mario Benavente. I was elected to City Council in District 3 about a year and a half ago, and in a brief amount of time, I'm glad to say that we've had a lot of successes. I'm a product of this community. I went to Lucille Souders as a kid, Luther McGerald's, went on to E.E. Smith, class of 2008, went off to college for a while, like a lot of our young people do after they leave high school in Fayetteville, educated at UNC Chapel Hill, and ultimately got my law degree at North Carolina Central University School of Law. And from my time at law school, I got a really deep perspective on issues of public safety, the need for restorative justice in our community, especially in a city where poverty is the root cause of so many of our issues of crime. And whether or not some folks believe that we can arrest our way out of these issues, or whether we can have a much more comprehensive approach to making sure that public safety in this city is resolved in a way that is most productive. So that's been my big charge, my big hope as I got elected to City Council. And I'm glad to say, in this very brief amount of time, just a year and a half into this role, we passed legislation. We've budgeted for an Office of Community Safety. I want to be able to speak more to exactly what that is later on in this interview. I'm glad to say that we've taken the first steps, and I'm glad to be in a position where I can serve the long-standing members of this community who have made District 3 a wonderful place to live, a great place to raise a family, and we want to keep building on the legacy that folks in this community have put so much hard work into, and that's the role I want to play. How do we continue to make this the best place to start a family and want to make a productive living for yourself? Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to talk about the issues, and you will have, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to answer, to give your perspective on an issue here in our city. So the first thing that we are going to talk about is going to be public safety. So overall, crime in Fayetteville has been falling since 2020. The first quarter of 2023 supports a downward trend. However, robbery has increased from 69 in the first quarter of 2022 compared to 72 in the first quarter of 2023. So what suggestions do you have to help the Fayetteville Police Department to drive down robbery? And so we will start with Mr. Mario Benavente, and then we will go to Mr. Rodriguez, and we will start with 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. So a lot has been said about our police department having a number of vacancies within their ranks, and we are trying to find the root issues of why it is that so many of our officers, much like many of our college graduates, are 1 foot out of the door in Fayetteville after they get their education or that they get their training. And one of the things I found through conversations with those folks is that in Fayetteville, you're expected to do a lot more than just police work. They're leaving for cities that not only pay more, but have wraparound services to where these officers aren't expected to be mental health care professionals, where they aren't expected to be social workers, where they aren't expected to be so many things that are outside of their training. So when we continue to set our officers up for failure and sort of deviate them from what they were trained to do, whether it's addressing issues of robbery or other types of aggravated crimes in this community, the more likely that those trends are going to continue to move upward. So what are we doing in this city to address the fact that the needs of this community are varied? We have folks dealing with mental health. We have folks that are dealing with abject poverty. We have folks that are dealing with addiction. And when a police officer comes around, a lot of those folks, their first instinct is to just leave from the area. And we're not necessarily they're not necessarily able to address the issue because constitutionally, until a law has been broken, they really can't act. So other cities have found that something like an Office of Community Safety is the best way to address issues that don't necessarily rise to an issue of the law being broken, but clearly there's a problem here. Just because the water isn't boiling doesn't mean it can't burn you. But the police cannot act until that water is truly boiling and overflowing. So what can we do at all those other temperatures leading up to that moment? Durham has a particular model. They call it the HEARTS model. Well, they'll have a van with 3 clinical outreach support specialists that will address issues that, as of right now, we don't deal with until the person ends up having, some sort of outburst or some sort of incident, or is getting to a place where they look around, they're looking to do a breaking and entering situation. But we see these folks. We see folks that are struggling in our community, and if we have a way to address their needs and address their lack of resources, we're much more likely to prevent those instances of breaking and entering so that the trend stops. And for the ones that, are still engaging in that behavior, your officers are free to approach and address those issues. But ultimately, again, we can't keep expecting that we're going to catch everybody at the downstream. We have to move upstream and start to address the real issues of poverty in this community. A Harvard study recently, it's a little bit further out now, 2017, said that if you're born into poverty in Fayetteville, you're more likely to be even poorer than your parents if you stay. So at what point are we really going to address some of the underlying issues that push people into antisocial behavior, breaking the law, breaking and entering? People aren't typically interested in going down that route. So we got to find better ways to get them their resources so they don't have to turn to that lifestyle.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez.
Hi, again, Alex Rodriguez. As a former police officer, you have to let the police. You can't handcuff the police because they're the ones trying to maintain public safety. So what we got to do is not constrain and let the police be a little bit more proactive, more aggressive toward fighting crime. Again, the increase in crime is due because a lot of it has to do with the police again, I agree with Mr. Benavente, the police have to do a whole bunch of other duties that they're not properly trained for. I support the Office of Community Safety. However, I don't want to have to raise taxpayer funds in the future to continue to pay for it. That's where I go and re-budget the entire city budget, so we cut spending on unnecessary areas to cover that. Again, we got to give our police pay raises, and our first responders deserve pay raises so that they don't leave. So what we do is, again, budget properly in the city budget, which was increased by 15% over last year's budget. Re-budget, cut a lot of the pork and the fat out of the city budget, and re-budget to priorities that we need. Again, in order to avoid that, we got to pay our police what they deserve. Also, we have to encourage or guide or instruct the police department to recruit out of our Fayetteville Tech Law Enforcement Academy. They don't do that. They can run joint academies with Fayetteville Tech in order to increase the number of recruits coming out of the system every year. Fayetteville Police Department only conducts 2 academies a year. Fayetteville Tech conducts 3. So they could ask the Fayetteville Tech to conduct a simultaneous academy while they're training in their own academy to increase the number of recruits that the Fayetteville Police Department increases every year. So again, a lot of it's self-inflicted wounds out there that, issues. I'm the only former law enforcement officer running for city, municipal county or municipal seat or city council in the seat. So again, who best to work on the crime issues with the police? Somebody who's actually been out there and patrolled the streets. Thank you.
Okay. So both of you have talked about the ways that you think that crime can be lowered here in the city of Fayetteville. Mr. Benavente, you talked about poverty and how it can impact keeping people here. You talked about salary. We have seen on television how the police have to deal with mental health calls and how they sometimes are not trained to address those issues. So mental health calls involving the police department, we know can be dangerous for the police officer and for the person who is having a mental health crisis. And so cities across the country are trying to find ways to eliminate the loss of life during mental health crises. If it were possible, would you support funding for a specialized unit to work with Fayetteville Police Department to assist with mental health calls versus a full-on tactical police response? And we will start with you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, I would support a creation of a unit, again, with proper funding from the city without raising taxes again. I would support it because, again, our police officers are not social workers. They're there to enforce the law. They're there to protect the innocent. They're there to protect themselves. As a former police officer, my first obligation every time I went out on patrol, come home alive, come home to my family every night, every morning after shift. So again, a lot of these incidents end up in tragedy because, again, our police officers aren't trained to be mental health workers or social workers. They're trained to be law enforcement officials. So they have to protect themselves and innocent third parties in the area before they can take proper action, which they're not trained to do. So yeah, I would, with proper funding and proper allocation of resources at City Hall, I would support the creation of a unit that would respond to mental health issues in the community alongside police and law and first responders, and of course, protect our police officers at the same time.
Mr. Benavente.
So the state constitution, the United States Constitution, absolutely limits what the police department and law enforcement can do to get involved in situations where the law has not been broken. So the idea that a response to issues of mental health, addiction, poverty would have to come out of the police department is the wrong strategy. We have to have a completely separate office, which is what I'd spoken about, what I've gotten my colleagues to budget for, an office of community safety, completely separate from the police department that can address these issues. And this is something that, again, talking with our chief of police and other high-ranking officials, they'll say themselves, we're not the best people to come in after an instance of domestic violence to talk with that victim. We reach out to a nonprofit, completely separate and apart from the police department, who has the skills, training, and they also take away that we're going to get in trouble now because the police are involved aspect. When someone with a badge, a gun, and handcuffs comes around, it does put people in a certain mindset where they don't want to get in trouble, they don't want to get arrested, they're afraid to say necessarily everything that's going on for fear that it might turn back on them and you'd be used against them in the court of law. So we have to be very, very savvy and very wise about the ways that we introduce proactive and preemptive work. It can't be in the process of trying to get someone in trouble. It really has to be about care, compassion, and getting folks access to resources. So there has to be a bright line distinction, or else you don't have that trust. You don't have that trust between the individual who's suffering from addiction to be able to say what he's addicted to, because next thing you know, an officer might have to say, well, now I got to find your stash and now you got to go to jail. So all of a sudden this person is going to not want to get involved or want to speak to somebody for that potential. Someone is impoverished and they're barely making ends meet, living out of the car with their children. Maybe they scanned some items at the self-checkout line that they didn't pay for, and they don't want to get caught for that. They're not going to talk to the police. They're not going to engage with anyone from law enforcement for fear of how it could impact them and maybe the moves that they made out of desperation. Whatever we do to address these issues proactively and preemptively has to recognize a complete and constitutional separation between what law enforcement's role is and what the community says we need to do for the members of our community who are most vulnerable, who are most likely to fall into sort of the hands of a criminal lifestyle or antisocial behavior. But I'm talking about addressing these issues well before it gets to that point so that we can reduce the instances where the police even have to get involved. You know, I think even law enforcement themselves would say they'd be much happier to put themselves out of a job. And there's plenty of communities and plenty of cities around the country that just don't have certain issues and are able to just address bank robberies and, again, big time drug busts. And that's their focus. We can't be relying on the police to address all of these issues. It would be like having a doctor that says, don't come around until you have to go to the emergency room.
That's your time.
There's a lot more that we can do before it gets to that point. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to switch now to city management. The city of Fayetteville adopted the council manager form of municipal government in June of 1949. The city council is responsible for establishing laws and policies, setting strategic priorities, and adopt the annual budget. The city manager is responsible for managing city employees and the finances and resources. The mayor is responsible for acts as the official head of city government and presides at the city council meetings. Some citizens believe the city of Fayetteville does not use a council manager form of government to manage the day-to-day operations of the city, but has a monocratic mayor and dysfunctional city council. What will you bring to the office of the mayor or city council to restore or reinforce the council manager form of government? And we'll start with you, Mr. Benavente.
Certainly. We can imagine huge cities like Atlanta where the mayor who's elected has their own staff essentially, and they really do operate almost the same way our federal government works, in that they have a huge executive staff that works at the behest of that mayor. That's not the situation here in Fayetteville. We're nowhere near as large, and so we do rely on our city manager to be a kind of CEO to implement what the city council suggests as broad policies. The way I describe it to citizens is that we all want to go on vacation, and we say, amongst ourselves, one person wants to go to Vegas, one person wants to go to Los Angeles, and we agree, how about we just go west? And then it's up to the city manager to say how we get there. And we'll get more specific the closer we get to that end goal. And that's sort of the relationship I describe it when I try to explain it to folks. As it relates to any folks who feel like our mayor is a particularly strong mayor, I do, and I have experience personally, certainly coming up against the voting bloc. I think our mayor does have a pretty strong hand on 2 or 3 of our council members, and there are sort of a voting bloc that I'm always having to sort of contend against to make sure that progress is moving here in the city of Fayetteville. So I make that known. I discuss it. I certainly have expressed that situation to not just my constituents, but to my colleagues as well, that I expect that we move at a pace that the community expects us to move at, and not necessarily at a pace that is best for political correctness or what's politically prudent for any individual. We got to do what's best for the city, and sometimes that means moving at a pace that's a little bit more progressive than what the mayor or anyone in a particular voting bloc might like, but it's necessary, or else you really have to admit that perhaps not everyone in city council has an equal voice. If we're saying that we're going to block out anyone who's not in the voting bloc from being able to get their voice heard, you're essentially saying that there are certain districts in this community that aren't going to get their priorities heard. So that's something that I've been made keenly aware of over the past year and a half. Nevertheless, I do my best to work with my colleagues to move things across the finish line. The Office of Community Safety is a big one that I was able to sort of break through and get a majority of our council members to see that it was a productive move for our community. So it's up to an individual council person to have a good idea. And if you hit a wall with the voting bloc, you take it to the people. You take it to the people and you bring in other voices to help, use the democratic process to make sure that if not everyone's on board initially, you get people on board by making sure that you are engaging as many partners as you can. And that's your role as a representative. You certainly just can't sit there hoping for the best. I don't think it's the best thing for District 3 to sort of just wait at the pace of a voting bloc. There are some things that our community wants now, and we're going to fight until we get it.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, there's a lot that I agree with Mr. Benavente on. He has to be, action at City Hall has to be a lot quicker, a lot more efficient than they currently are. Again, the voting blocks, one solution to that is term limits. Unfortunately, we have to change the state constitution and lobby our state legislators and senators to change the law and provide for term limits at all levels of state government. So that's one solution. Another solution is, again, self-discipline and work with each other, but actually have ideas that work. Produce ideas with work, introduce ideas that have been known to work in other municipalities. It doesn't hurt to think outside the box. Work with each other, work outside the box, think outside the box. Continue to strive, but at the same time, there is opposition within the city council that you're always going to bump heads against because they're just set in their ways. So again, you have to take it to the people. The media also, you have to take it to the media. Let the media here in Fayetteville has done a terrible job of holding city council and our city officials responsible or accountable, because they just don't report, they don't follow up aggressively enough on issues such as the Jada Johnson shooting. The city's sitting on that. They haven't released the results of that because they're just sitting on it because it's election time. It's election period. They're sitting on it. Rick Iwanski, her grandfather, who I talk to on a weekly basis, he has no problem with it being released to the public. But I guarantee you there's a lot of CYA because the city council won't release it to the public. A lot of it, one thing a lot of the public hasn't heard is the elections. I talked to 5 constituents in the last 5 days, and none of them know that there's an election coming up. There's a lot that the city does not provide, a lot of information that the city does not provide the public because they're sitting on the information or they don't want the public to know. So transparency is very important in order to get things done or to put pressure on our city council members to get things done, because if there's no accountability and there's no oversight, no insight from the media and from the public, then the city council isn't going to budge. So they need to do a better job of holding our city accountable, but at the same time, we need more citizens to get involved in the election process and as well as in the municipal process. Come out to your meetings. I would go and have our quarterly town hall meetings in our North Regional Library with my constituents on a quarterly basis. So that's 4 times a year. I'm also available by phone, by email. So I'm readily accessible, and I will come to you if that's necessary. But those are one of the things that we need to do in order to push effective and cost-effective legislation forward.
Okay, thank you. So, I'm your fairy godmother. I'm awarding you a $20 million grant that you can use for the city any way you want. What would you do with it and why? Mr. Benevent.
Thank you. So I've said it since my opening comments, and I'll say it again. The city needs a fully funded Office of Community Safety if we really want to address the root issues that lead to crime and issues of public safety. And when I talk about this fairy tale world where we've got folks in a van responding to issues of homelessness, mental health, and addiction, how quickly could we possibly get that done? Well, we can look at Durham, where when they established their Office of Community Safety, they started with $3 million and a 15-person staff. And within 11 months, they had those clinical outreach professionals going out into the community in 3 specific zones during certain particular days, during certain particular hours. And over time, they grew that to where they were all over the city and were available at all hours. So $3 million is not a huge price tag. That's where I would start with that $20 million. I want to make sure that we have a fully funded Office of Community Safety, and we can let people know that within this day and 11 months from now, you're going to see the fruit of that particular investment. It sounds like I have a little bit of money left over. I think that, when we think about youth crime, we think about the areas that ShotSpotter has identified as the areas most likely, most ripe for the next instance of gun violence. One of those areas is in District 3. The other is in Massey Hill. The other is off of Cliffdale. But the one that concerns me in District 3, we put those microphones up to hear for the next instance of gun violence. But right now, we're spending $300,000 a year just waiting for the next problem to happen. What are we doing to invest in that area to find out what makes it so ripe and how can we prevent the next instance of gun violence? So one of the recommendations I made, one of the legislation pieces that I put in, was to literally go door to door, block to block in that particular 1 mile radius and find out what is it about this community? Are people housing insecure? Are folks unable to find adequate childcare? Are folks, without a decent job to make a living and make ends meet? What is it about this area? Because guess what? There's green areas around this city where the cops are hardly ever called. And we can see the differences between these 2 areas. And again, they have a secure job, a secure roof over their head. Their children have places to go after school. It's not a mystery what it is that we can do as a community to make this area less ripe for gun violence. So the cost of being able to address that issue in that 1 mile radius, and then perhaps all 3 of the ShotSpotter identified areas would cost, I think, probably several millions of dollars. So that would be the other area of investment. One of the other things I brought up was an idea of a community home trust. So this is an idea where you realize that communities like Seabrook and Broadell in District 3, and there's plenty across the city, that are historic areas where school teachers and retired Army folks 50 years ago got to buy their first home, raise their families, and they want to be able to maintain that character of that community. They don't want to get these phone calls from predatory real estate folks trying to buy it for pennies on the dollar, turn it all into high rises, and sort of gentrify this area and destroy the character of these communities. So how have other cities protected against that potential? They call it a community home trust, where literally a nonprofit is established within that neighborhood that sells these homes back into the trust. And once it's back into the trust, they can make sure that it stays affordable, and we can make sure that 50 years from now, this community looks exactly the way that Seabrook Braudel wants it to look like. I would make sure that there were millions of dollars available for us to establish a community home trust in District 3.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez.
Okay, 10 million automatically would go to a homeless shelter and one-stop center set up so that they can receive not only basic shelter, food, showers, amenities, medical care if needed, dental care if needed, psychiatric help if needed, and possibly employment assistance. My idea, which if you look on my website or on my Facebook page, one of my idea was to purchase the location across from the Amazon warehouse across on Bragg Boulevard and transform that into a one-stop shelter for homeless, both families and men. It's away from any residential area, so there's no safety issues there. Also, set up community services for the homeless there that will provide medical, dental, psychiatric, as well as job employment, plus the employment across the street at the Amazon warehouse. There's a bus line at the end of that line to provide them a transportation to other locations as well. I would also pay pay raises for our police officers and first responders who are in dire need of it. Pump more money into our police department in order to increase recruiting. We need to recruit more police officers, and we can keep them here by giving them pay raises. That way, they're not going to another agency or another state to find better employment. We also need to work with our schools and improve their schools. One thing I would like to is more education at the school level as far as gun violence. Of course, that would have to work with the Cumberland County schools with that, because that is their department, but the city does have some say in contributing to schools and working with their Cumberland County schools to work with the schools to reduce youth violence and gun violence. Also, I'd probably donate $1 million to the Shriners, because kids with cancer, it pulls a string in my heart, and I need to, I don't like to see kids suffer. Okay, so if anything I can do to alleviate the suffering, I would help. So that's what I would do with the $20 million. Hopefully, we don't have to raise taxes to maintain those programs. But if the fairy godmother was out there somewhere, hopefully I can get that.
Okay, thank you. So you shared what you would do with the $20 million that I would give you as fairy godmother. Well, we know one of the issues that is plaguing cities across the country is the whole issue of affordable housing. So what do you think the city can do to make home ownership an achievable goal for new homeowners? And we will start with you, Mr. Rodriguez.
What the city can do is reduce property taxes instead of increasing the property taxes, which is taking a pinch or some money, especially out of those with fixed incomes. There's a lot of retirees who are on fixed incomes, a lot of people on government subsidies and welfare, Social Security, that are going to feel the pinch because of the taxes, because of the uncontrolled spending at City Hall. So they're going to feel that pinch because they're on limited income. They need to go back and reduce taxes, property taxes, as well as business taxes and sales taxes, so that people have more money to spend on housing. It just makes no sense to raise property taxes, because apparently the property owner and or the renter is going to pay more as a result of that. It's going to get passed on to them. So that wasn't a very smart move by the city council to raise taxes. Again, People, there's a lot of housing out there right now. I walk my district and there's a lot of empty houses. The reason people aren't willing to buy in this economy, interest rates are too high. They also want to buy new. There's a lot of VA home loans here in the area, especially because we have a lot of veterans. The VA home loans are guaranteed loans for a lot of military veterans, so they're not too worried about the interest rates. However, they're buying new, which is leading to the expansion of new housing being constructed in Cumberland County and in surrounding counties around Fort Bragg. But you got to make it affordable in order for those who are retiring here or staying here or already living here to afford their housing, because too many people want to buy new, but they leave. A lot of veterans leave because, again, this is not a very tax-friendly location. We have to make it tax-friendly for businesses and for individuals to want to stay here. So, again, cutting taxes, cutting sales taxes, cutting property taxes, cutting business taxes so that people can actually maintain, not only keep their homes, maintain their homes, because there's a lot of renovation that goes into it. So people are wanting to buy new instead of having to renovate all of these empty houses that sit around Fort Bragg that are either for sale or for rent. So again, there's, cutting taxes, decreasing wasteful spending in order not to raise taxes at City Hall, as well as working on controlling the crime and improving the schools. That's what we're going to make people want to stay in Fayetteville. Improve the public schools and cutting down on the crime.
All right.
I spoke to it a moment ago. The idea of a community home trust, I think, is the best way to solve several issues. We know that we want folks who have lived in the city for a long time to be able to retire in place and not feel compelled to have to sell their homes. One of the scariest business concepts I learned while I was on city council is what a reverse mortgage is. And I heard that on these infomercials all the time. I never really understood what it meant. The idea is that you sell your home for pennies on the dollar to some corporate landlord, and you get to live in your home until you pass rent-free. And that sounds like it could really motivate some people or convince some people to sell their homes, especially when their children aren't interested in sticking around, their grandkids aren't interested in sticking around, and they really don't know what to do next with their property. My concern is that shouldn't be the only option on the table for folks in this city, especially in District 3. Rather than giving up the character of the neighborhood or the legacy that has been built in some of our communities, the concept of a community home trust, again, is that you sell your home back to your community. And then that neighborhood makes sure that we're maintaining the character, the integrity, and we're talking about areas right next to FSU for future students, future grad students, future professors that want to have the same opportunities to raise their families in this city at an affordable rate. You're not motivated by profits. You're not motivated by some person outside the city or outside the state who's just pulling up rent as high as they possibly can. The other issue of affordable housing in this community, we have to recognize sort of the elephant in the room that is Fort Liberty. How much basic housing allowance folks get coming out of the Army has artificially buoyed the rent in this area in a way that folks working service industry jobs cannot compete with. Especially, we learned this after COVID, when so many restaurants and service industries jobs shut down. The only people really able to make rent every month were the guys who were getting federal paychecks that never stopped. So we need to diversify our economy. We can't just be serving only the transient community that comes out of Fort Bragg. We've got to start taking care of our native folks, our town folks who are coming out of our high schools that are going into higher ed and deserve an opportunity to achieve the American dream, to buy their first home. We want to make, and we have this currently, options for first-time home buyers to come to the city of Fayetteville and take advantage of some of the loan programs that we have so that we can keep our best and brightest sticking around in the area. I want to expand that. I want to make sure that we're advertising that so all of our young people recognize that the city wants you here, we need you here, and let's find a way to make it affordable for you to stick around. Then it comes to developers. We know that we need more housing. We're in a housing crunch where we don't have enough units to even sell folks or to rent to folks. So what are some of the different things in our Unified Development Ordinance that we can make adjustments for, that other cities have made adjustments for, and we're able to see, wow, those developers suddenly really want to do business here in Fayetteville because we took some of these barriers out of their way. Those are things that I'm relying on some of my other colleagues on who are savvy on that, but I want to support them in making sure that we're making it easy to develop the next great housing district here in Fayetteville at an affordable rate for everyone.
Thank you. So I'm going to give you your closing question for the evening. Why are you the best candidate to represent the city of Fayetteville as the city council person? We will start with you, Mr. Benavente.
Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate Councilmember Waddell and Representative Floyd for this opportunity. Amanda, thank you as well for always being someone who is in the front lines of these democratic conversations here in our city. It's important that we have as many avenues as possible for these discussions, and so I thank you again. I'm the best person to represent District 3 because I show up. There hasn't been a forum, there hasn't been a phone call that I've received in the past 12 months that I haven't responded to. I make it a priority to show up for my community at different events, at all the community watches, and because of that, I have a really great idea of what it is my community needs, and I'm able to take that to City Council and put real legislation and real dollars behind solutions. I've been awarded certificates of appreciation from Eccles Park, from Seabrook Braudel. I've been noted to be a candidate of distinction for Moms Against Gun Violence at the national level. And it's because I'm very proactive about the research that I do to find out all the ways that we can improve issues of public safety in this city. And you have to have a council person who's going to do more than just sit up there, show up once every couple of weeks and put their thumb up and down with what the staff brings forward. You need a council person who is using all of their experience, all of their education to make moves. I've got an @fayettevillec.gov email address. I'm emailing professors and experts all around the country on these issues. I'm working the same way I think our assistant city managers and our city manager work on these issues. The city of Fayetteville and District 3 are getting another legal professional and expert in my time on city council, and I want to give that back to my community because it's given me so much. I'm so proud of my E. Smith Golden Bull family. They put me in a position where I'm able to serve in this way, and I owe that back to District 3, and I owe that back to my community. So I've got that chip on my shoulder. I want to work for y'all. I'm always open to the different needs that are coming my way, and I want to prove to you that I can continue to be the best council person for this community. We've installed the most sidewalks and speed bumps ever in District 3. The Office of Community Safety, like I said, it's on its way. And I'm thinking about all the progressive ways that we can address issues of public safety, poverty, mental health, and addiction without just speaking on a platitude level. Check out the Fayetteville Observer. You'll see more survey questions and answers from myself and my opponent. I think you'll find a distinct difference between the both of us. So again, I'm asking for 2 more years to continue to work for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez?
Fayetteville, I'm one of you. I live in the community with you. I work in the community with you. I have the wisdom and experience on the street that everybody in the community should have. Former police officer, I'm a military retiree veteran that has lived here since 2007. I've been on and off since 1994. My kids grew up here. My grandchildren are growing up here. Why? Because I think Fayetteville can do a lot better. Fayetteville can be a better place. And I'm a small business owner, homeowner, and a full-time employee. So again, I've got the experience. I don't live, in a gated community, so I'm not out of touch with the everyday Fayettevillean. Okay, I live in the same neighborhoods that everyday Fayettevilleans do. I'm not out of touch. I experience what you experience. I budget like you budget. I have to worry about everyday things that the average Fayettevillean does. So that makes me more compatible and more knowledgeable and have more wisdom than a lot, some of the people currently on city council. Not all, but some. I'm for term limiting myself to 3 terms, nothing more, nothing less. I don't plan to make it a career. I'm there to serve the public and then move on. Again, I'm a former police officer, so I know a little bit about how to deal with crime. I budget, so I know that as a guardian of the people's money, it is my responsibility to make sure that the city's budget is meeting the needs of the community and being properly spent instead of being wasted and then you, the citizens, penalized through tax increases. Again, I'm an open and honest book. You ask me a question, I will answer it. You're not going to get a political answer from me because, again, too much is being kept from this community and from the citizens that they need to know. So again, I'm one of you. I'm a commoner. I'm a common guy, everyday average blue collar guy. I happen to have a little bit of white collar experience, a little bit of executive experience in the military. So I'm one of you. That's what makes me more qualified to become a city councilman because again, I've worked my way up. I didn't have anything silver spoon to me. I started out, a lower middle class kid on the streets of Los Angeles and I transferred over here in the military. And again, I've built everything I had. I've worked hard for everything I got. I have an education thanks to in part to my hard work and thanks to the opportunities provided to me by the military. But now I want to share that wisdom experience with you so that I can work to improve the lives of everyday Fayettevilleans. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope that everyone who is listening with us this evening will take the information that they have when they go to the polls. Thank you, and we will be right back in just a few with candidates from District 1 and District 2. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. We are here in Upzone, and we're going to be talking with candidates who are running for City Council for District 1 and District 2. We have with us Kathy Jensen, who is the incumbent for District 1, and then we have Shaquilla Ingram, who is the incumbent for District 2, and we have Malik Davis, who is running for District 2. Each candidate will have a minute to give their opening statement and a minute to give their closing statement, and I will ask them about issues that are important to the city of Fayetteville. So we are going to start with Ms. Jensen giving her opening remark, and we'll go around the table.
So good evening to everyone, and I would like to thank the Upzone for having this forum for us. My name is Kathy Keefe Jensen. Welcome to the North Side, everybody. I have been the representative for District 1 for 10 years now. I was born and raised in Fayetteville. I grew up in Kenwood. I went to Long Hill. I went to Pine Forest Junior High. I went to Pine Forest High School and then went off to East Carolina and came back to Methodist. My priorities that I have for Fayetteville is when I decided to run, I got very upset with something that was going on in my neighborhood and the development and the growth that was happening out here on the north side of town. I just didn't feel that there was a plan. So I'm very much into public safety, economic development, and our quality of life. My goal has always been that my children would be able to come back to Fayetteville and have the opportunities in Fayetteville that they have everywhere else. Thank you.
Ms. Ingram, your opening statement.
All right. Good evening. I am Councilwoman Shaquilla Ingram. I currently serve on the Fayetteville City Council District 2. I have been in the seat for about 3 years now, serving my ad hoc second term. I am of District 2. I grew up right in my grandparents' barber shop, which is where I believe I learned the essence of community and being able to support others. My family, my grandmother settled in Haymount Hill. My dad settled in Massey Hill. My mom and stepdad settled in Owenston Road area. I did spend some time in my adult life at college in Atlanta, and then I lived and worked and recreated there. And so I do have a unique perspective on being a transplant in another community, as we are home to Fort Liberty, formerly known as Fort Bragg. When I came back home, I was not wanting to stay here. I wanted to go to Durham. I had some place picked out already, but I said, you know what? I noticed a lot of individuals my age were coming back home. Okay, and I wanted to make a change. Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
Yes, ma'am. So my name is Malik Davis, and I am the candidate for District 2 for the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And my campaign is all about bridging the gap between politics and people, giving the people's voice a seat at the table and into the rooms that can change their everyday life. I'm born and raised in Fayetteville, grew up on the east side of Fayetteville, graduated from Cape Fear High School, went immediately into the workforce and working into the medical field. Then I began working in the school system. Then I transitioned from the school system. Then I went to the clerk of court's office under the leadership of Lisa Scales, also serving, got another job upstairs in the district court judge's office under the leadership of Tony King. During my time of working, I volunteered on the boards and commissions. I served as the Millennial Advisory Commission chair for a while, and then during my time, we changed the name to Fayetteville Next to better reach the next generation. Currently serving on the Fascinate You Children's Museum Board, also the vice president of the Young Democrats of Cumberland County, and also serving in the Juvenile Mentorship Program for Cumberland County.
All right, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the issues, or hear from you, your position on the issues. So Governor Roy Cooper, by way of executive order, created the North Carolina Office of Violence Prevention, which will be located in the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. By coordinating efforts across state agencies and partnering with local leaders, the new office will focus on reducing violence and firearm misuse in North Carolina. What would you do in your role to help reduce gun violence in Fayetteville? And we will start with you, Ms. Jensen.
So, thank you. So you asked, what would I do to stop the role that is happening with gun violence here in Fayetteville? I think that the city council started that 3 years ago when 2020, when we had COVID come in and we had the George Floyd things that had happened. But what I will say to you is our police chief has brought us many things and said, this is what I feel that will help us. We've got lots of things that are going on in our toolbox, and there's only but so much on a city level that we can do. And I really believe that, our toolbox that we have, he has asked for the shot spotter. We approved the shot spotter. He asked for license plate readers. We approved the license plate readers, which is very interesting that we are finding that we are really, really being able to detect a lot of things that are going on in our city and stop some things with these license plate readers. And of course, we have the curfew that our police chief came to us and asked us for to be a complete replica of the curfew that was done in the county. I do not think that the city was ready for exactly what the county had, but we are bringing that back to the table and having the discussions. I think that as a city council and as a city and as a community, the county, the schools, and the city need to come together and realize how much of a crisis that we are in for our young children and guns. There is a lot that we can do as a community, and we need to quit working in silos, and our police cannot do it by themselves.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ingram.
Thank you. So I will say recently we were able to fund about $1.5 million to nonprofits and organizations that work directly with our youth and young adult population, where we are seeing spike in crime, in violent crime and crime against our youth. Additionally, we funded about a little over $500,000 for community-based violence initiatives and victim protective programs. We additionally added some additional funding to rape crisis for victims experiencing that. But where we are right now is we are preparing to come to the table with our partners. We had a special meeting that called for us to have a more in-depth conversation about, the curfew that was mentioned. And I will say what the curfew did do is it started a much needed conversation where I like to say all hands on deck perspective. And in that meeting, we called on what I call them our can-do partners to come to the table with us and look at an approach. It doesn't have to be about the curfew, but look at the approach to how we are working to combat this crime that we see. Also, in the last budget cycle, we funded for the Director of Office of Community Safety. So I do look forward to seeing what we do with that. But I think as a current sitting council member, I recognize that we are exhausting a lot of our resources to be all hands on deck. But I think the missing component is bringing our can-do partners to the table, and of course continuing to work with community partners to make sure that we are doing all that we can to combat crime. And at the end of the day, I think we have to get back to being real, true neighbors to each other. That's what I really think. We got to get to know each other again. Those that live directly around us, I say the 5 houses around you, you need to get to know them. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Davis.
So they've already said quite a few things. I believe that it's going to take a community effort to make this thing not disappear, but make it better. I know for sure I will speak from the youth perspective because I'm a part of the Youth Juvenile Mentorship Program. And we need to make sure that we're looking at ways of making sure that the children, of the youth, are in programs that can help them make better decisions, make sure they have job training and employment opportunities so that they can be at work rather than out here in the streets doing other things. We need to have some conflict resolution and anger management programs that can help with their mindset on how they think about certain situations and how they address certain situations. I think the city has done a job, like the curfew, like it was a good idea, but wasn't the best thing to implement. However, it will begin to allow the community to think differently about this crime that we're seeing with our guns and our children. And me being on the Youth Juvenile Mentorship Program, we discuss these issues with the children of, what's causing you to have these issues. I believe if we get back to talking to this next generation and talking to them and asking them why they're making the decisions they're making, instead of making them feel like they're criminals all the time. We need to make sure we have programs in place, and there are a lot of nonprofit organizations who are dedicated to serving the next generation. And as I said, as the next representative for District 2, I will be looking at ways that we can continue to push those organizations so that we can better help this next generation when it comes to crime.
Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned the youth, because that's my next question that I'd like to hear from you all on. So My Future North Carolina 2 million by 2030 reports North Carolina's rates of opportunity youth were similar to the national average. About 12% of people between the age of 16 and 24 were not working or employed in 2021, both in North Carolina and nationally, with North Carolina's rates of opportunity for youth falling slightly below the national average of 12% versus 12.4%. What ideas do you have to employ our youth year round? And where would you find the resources and monies to fund the program? And we will start with you, Mr. Davis.
Okay, great. That's a good question. So we can definitely partner with local businesses to hire the the youth, so that when they're graduating college or when they're in middle of summer, they can have somewhere to work to kind of better find their focus on something else other than being in the streets or whatever they choose to do. Definitely partnership with businesses and that can allow the businesses to do internships and kind of get them into a place where they can feel like they're making their own money, they're doing their own thing, and they feel proud about themselves. If you can make someone feel better about themselves, they'll want to do better. And as far as finding the money, we can definitely look at ways in the budget for the city to, like I said, help the businesses when it comes to that. I'm not sure right now if there's any specific programs that the city funds for that to allow children to be able to work. But we can definitely look at businesses. Downtown is a good place for them to be able to work. The baseball stadium is a good place for them to maybe find some summertime jobs if they're not, or during the season. So just basically getting the community together and basically making the children feel like they're a part of the community that they live in.
Okay. And we will go to Miss Ingram.
Yes, thank you. So, we recently put $1 million into workforce development using our ARPA dollars, and that directly went to trade programs at FTCC. We called, I believe, for 2 years ago, we called for us to look at workforce development in the scope of our colleges and universities, so that our students that are seeking Fayetteville for education, when they are graduating or even when they are starting to, for like social work, do field work, we have spaces where they can get on-hand field work, or when they are graduating, they can come confidently into the workforce in Fayetteville to live, work, and recreate. For instance, our Day Resource Center, we have social work here at Fayetteville State University. We already have a plethora of students that are very interested to go to our Day Resource Center to be able to get field experience, as you will say. So another thing is FTCC. I'm a product of what they now call the HOPE program. So when I was in high school, I was a part of Ford Partnership for Advanced Studies. I was on an engineering track. We were in high school. We went over to FTCC, and by the time we got ready to graduate high school, we were able to become certified electricians. I did not take that route because I got electrocuted. However, I can still, do the work today. More interestingly, because we are from this community, the homes on Old Wilmington Road, my class, the Habitat home, my class were able to do. So I still drive up and down that street with a sense of pride that I was a teenager. Being able to come out of high school and get field experience and say, I can be certified in electricity to do your electrical work. Looking at how that plays in our area, when I got on council in 2019, we received a report that said 800 individuals go into poverty annually. Then COVID hit. So in my mind, that number tripled. And so to know that we already do have those programs in place, now that does not stop us from being innovative. I think we do have to do more work to bring in more fields that would keep people here in Fayetteville to want to work. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Jensen.
So thank you. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different route on this. So I understand that you've given me the numbers to the state, and we all know that Fayetteville and unemployment, we've always been working to make that number less and less. So what I will tell you that we are partnering with FTCC right now, and I don't think a lot of people know this, and it's the New Hope program. Mm-hmm. And what this program does is it is not if you are young, old, or whatever. You can go to FTCC. You can go into school. They will teach you a trade. While you are at school, they are going to give you an internship. They are going to pay you up to $15 an hour is the minimum that you can make in that internship. They partner with the business or the city or the county. You know what the biggest issue is? They can't find people that want to do it. So they are paying for your child care. They're paying for your school, they're giving you a stipend to live, and they're giving you a job. So we have all these things in place. Fayetteville State went 2 years ago and got on the program that it's $500 a semester to go to Fayetteville State. I will tell you, I think what the biggest issue that we have with our youth and with unemployment is somewhere along the road, Fayetteville residents do not feel that they are good enough to be able to get that college education, or they don't have the means to do it. And it is out there. But we have to come with our and I love how Councilmember Ingram said can-do partners. This is where we brought in the Youth Council. The kids that started the Youth Council, I will tell you, probably 60 to 70% of them, when they get in, do not think that they are going to college. They don't think they have the means, or that they don't think that they're college material. And I can tell you, 95% of them are going to college by the time they're a senior, because we're teaching them and showing them that it is possible. So until Fayetteville comes around and makes ourselves the can-do city, and that we sit there and we explain all these things that are happening in our environment for our kids, we are trying to be to get out of this tier one situation. And I will say that we have gone out to find the grants, the monies that we can help our children, the next generation, come up, because that is what is going to pull us out of unemployment in Fayetteville. And we are so ahead of the game. I just don't think that we realize that we're that good at so many things.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So, um, we just talked about what can be done as far as our youth are concerned. What I'd like to do is shift to talking about homelessness here in the city. The city did open the new day resource center for the homeless community. And it is our understanding, or it's been reported, that nearly $7 million was spent on the facility to serve as a one-stop shop for people at risk and who are currently experiencing homelessness. How do you propose the city, other than what is being done with the new facility, to address homelessness in the city of Fayetteville? And we'll start with Miss Ingram.
Thank you. So one great unique thing that we did recently do was we added about $4.5 million towards transitional housing for unhoused individuals. I'm very proud of that because what we are doing is we are stepping outside of Fayetteville's box, and we are saying, okay, we have to do something, even if it's not our responsibility. We are taking what I like to say leadership in that. And so in another sense, I've worked with developers who have created transitional housing for behavioral health, but what we were now getting ready to see is about 100 and some beds come online where there are live-in case managers, another form of wraparound services for our unhoused community. Very, very proud of that. You did talk about our homeless day resource center, and I do understand that there is some concern about the $7 million, but I can't say that there's a concern for me because we are answering a call. So to me, it's, would you have rather us answered the call or not? I've seen people use the shelter for safe space to get out of domestic violence issues. I've seen people come with their children just so their children can get a bath and get a nice meal and be able to wash their clothes for free. I've seen individuals go there to get a checkup so that they can then go to a job interview to say, I got this physical done, so now I can work. That resource center may have just opened about a month and a half or 2 months ago, but it is already being transformative in the lives that it's impacting. But I am looking forward to us doing more transitional housing in the city. I do know that the military is looking to be more hands-on with our unhoused community. So I am looking forward to that. And going back to an all hands on deck approach, I think the city is exhausting everything we can. We are looking for the money to do these things. We're not mandated public health, but we are showing up. We did use about close to $2 million of funding and with our ARPA for homelessness, and probably 2 to 4. I'll put it in that range, 2 to 4. But I am proud of the work that we are doing, and I look forward to more innovativeness that we push out here soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to Mr. Davis.
Could you repeat the last part of the question, please?
Okay, so the last part of the question said that nearly $7 million was spent on the facility to serve as a one-stop shop for people at risk and currently experiencing homelessness. How do you propose the city address the homeless population here in the city?
Well, I believe the city has done a great job in their efforts to combat homelessness. I believe that it's going to take a collaboration with, as we said before, a collaboration with the county to address the issue at its whole. Because what happens sometimes is if one part of the organization is doing something, there's going to be somebody missing in each part. So if we can get some more collaboration with this between city and county to address, I know that the county is getting ready to open. Have started the process for a shelter to house some of the homeless population. It's going to take a community effort. So for me, it'll be trying to find more ways that we can collaborate with the county to make sure that we are addressing homelessness as a whole.
Okay. Ms. Jensen.
Thank you. So again, I'm going to go back and tell a little bit of history. So probably back in 2018, Councilmember Waddell at the time, her and I were in Texas, and we went to look at one of the homeless shelters they had there in San Antonio. It's a $20 million operation a year. So when we went and met with the director, I said to them, what if you could do one thing, what would it be? We don't have a $20 million budget. And they said, a day center will start the process, and that's where you can start changing lives, is education and knowledge. So when Hurricane Matthew came and the county received $3.2 million to do a homeless shelter, they decided that was not in their timing, so they gave the money back. So the city went in and said, okay, we have an issue in the city. We would like that $3.2 million, which we received on a grant. It is not any taxpayer money from your city dollars, your city taxes. And we started on our trail to do the day center. So then we used our ARPA money to keep funding it, to get it to be $7 million. For the council to do $7 million on a day resourcer is a game changer. So what we're going to go back to is we talked about unemployment. So the mother that has the 3 children that is in an abusive relationship and wants to leave doesn't understand what is there for her. And her children can get into a better environment. So we'll talk about at the Day Resource Center, this is the goal. They'll learn about the HOPE program. They'll learn about the things in the schools that can help the children. The mother can learn where to get a job, or the mother could go to school and better herself. They can take a shower. They can wash their clothes. I don't know if a lot of people know this. One of the reasons young children, in between elementary school and middle school, don't come to school because they don't have clean clothes. We have given them the opportunity to go and have clean clothes, to get them to school, to get food, to get them on the right track. So what I will say to you is we do need our can-do partners to come with us. And, we built the day center. The people that were living out off of Gillespie Street, 23 of the 25 have now been housed. Mm-hmm. They have ID cards. They have a future for them. So we're on the right track. We just have to stay focused and keep moving.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And so the closing question is, why are you the candidate to represent your district? And so we will start with you, Mr. Davis.
Oh, that's a great question. First of all, I would like to thank the voters who came out and voted in the primary election. Numbers have shown that District 2 are ready for new representation. And I believe I'm the best candidate because I believe that this is the time that we need to bridge the gap between politics and people. We need to make sure that the people's voice in District 2 they're heard and that their voice is brought to the table. And I know I have the great work ethics to get the job done. I do not mind showing up for my community. It's been proven through my job history that my work ethics has carried me to the next level each time. And I know that the same work ethics I had in the world, in the work field, I'll take over into the political arena and I will show up for my district and I will be their best representative they had thus far.
All right, thank you. Miss Ingram.
Thank you. I am Councilwoman Shakila Ingram. I currently serve you on the Fayetteville City Council representing District 2, and I look forward to another term with you. I consider myself to be the best candidate because I have proven that I can deliver on behalf of the people. I have proven that I listen to the people. I prove that I work with the people, and I have no problem with acknowledging that I work for the people. I am asking the people of District 2 to keep experienced leadership that delivers directly for you. I do believe that my the strong work ethic that I have is not only a testament to the lessons that were instilled by me in me by my grandparents and my parents, but it's a shows of a deep commitment that I have to the district that I'm from and I live in and that I love. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Jensen.
Thank you, and thank you for having me again tonight. I believe that I am the best candidate for District 1. I was born and raised here. I live, I work, and I play here. I'm a proven leader, and I'm a proven collaborator. But the biggest issue that is facing District 1 is growth. And we are not going to stop growing. My understanding is that we are growing faster than 80 to 90% of the city. There are things that are going to be decisions that have to be made that are going to affect our everyday life in traffic and people coming into from Raleigh. We are becoming the bedroom community for Wake County. 3,000 people leave Fayetteville a day, go to work in Wake County, and then come back. And the north side of town is exactly where they want to be for convenience. And we have to make sure that when we develop and that we grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you have had the opportunity to hear from candidates from District 1 and District 2. We would like to thank them for coming out and taking the time to share with you their perspective on the issues. So when you go to the polls, we hope that you are educated before you cast your vote. Thank you, and we will be back with candidates from District 5 and District 9. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. We are back again with candidates who are running for City Council, District 5 and District 9. We have with us this evening Mr. Dino Hondras, who is running for District 6. He is the incumbent. District 9, I'm sorry, District 9. Again, that is District 9, Dino Hondras. For District 5, we have Lynn Green. And then for District 5, we have Johnny Dawkins, who is the incumbent. So you all have been given the instructions. We're going to go ahead and start. We will start with Mr. Hondras with your opening statement. You have 1 minute.
Good evening. Thank you for having us again. Again, my name is Dino Hondros. I'm a Fayetteville native by way of Greece. Both my parents immigrated from Greece. By now, everyone knows that story. First and foremost, I'm a son of God, a son to James and Elaine, a brother to Olga and Stella. I'm a husband to my wife Liza, and a father to my son James. Those are all the people that are my why. That's why I do what I do. For the past 24 years, I've been in a commercial realtor. The way I got into that space as a small business owner and entrepreneur early on, fresh out of high school, while going to Fayetteville Tech. With the help of my parents, I started my first business. And when I decided to get into real estate, it was always from the commercial aspect, trying to help other entrepreneurs
That was your
navigate.
time, Mr.
Okay,
Hondras.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Miss Green.
Hi, Amanda. Thanks for having us here tonight. I appreciate it. I'm Lynn Green, and I'm running for District 5 City Council. I have experience in a lot of local boards. I'm going to start there. I think everybody's heard my biography by now. I'm a little tired of it myself. I'm sure the voters are too. So I have had experience locally on about 10 boards, which included all of the committees, the committee service that leads up to those boards. So it's been an interesting journey. I feel like I've learned a lot. It speaks to the experience that I think is needed on the council. I think that's an important piece. And in that, I tell you all that because I decided that I would spend my time from July to this point meeting with local businesses and learning and hearing what their struggles are when working with the city council. So that is extremely
That's your time.
important.
Thank you. Mr. Dawkins.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm Johnny Dawkins. I live and work here in Fayetteville. My address is 1908 Milan Drive. My opponent has been saying I don't live in Fayetteville, but I do. I live and work here. My wife works here. I'm a business owner over 25 years, and I've never voted to raise your property taxes. Never. So I need to get that word out because that's being used against me that I don't live in town and I raise property taxes. Well, both are wrong. I live and work here, and I do have family in Raleigh. I've got a son and daughter up there and grandsons and a mother-in-law. So I'm happy to be running. I've served for 8 years, and I hope the voters will choose to let me serve for 2 more. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start talking about the issues and let you share your position. My Future North Carolina 2 million by 2030 reports that North Carolina's rates of opportunity youth were similar to the national average, about 12%. Of those people aged 16 to 24 were not working or employed in 2021, both in North Carolina and nationally, with North Carolina rates of opportunity youth falling slightly below the national average, 12.1% versus 12.4%. What ideas do you have to employ our youth year-round? And if so, where would you find the resources or the money to fund the program? We will start with you, Mr. Dawkins.
Yes, ma'am. Well, first off, FTCC got a large grant from the state of North Carolina for internships. So their focus is cyber. And if we can teach our young people cyber, there's huge opportunity in cyber. The other grant that they're going to be using money for is for logistics. This whole business world we live in today is all about logistics. With folks working remotely from home, logistics are hugely important. The quote gig economy, young people can get involved right away. They don't have to have a college degree. And then lastly, our trades, whether it be our HVAC, our air conditioned folks, our electrician, our plumbers, you can make well over six figures, well over $100,000 in each of those areas. So cyber and the trades and then logistics. That's the future of North Carolina. That's what Fayetteville State University got grants for, and Fayetteville Technical Community College, Methodist with their new medical school, the medical care, healthcare industry, which I'm in. I'm in health insurance and have been for 24 years. And it's exciting. But youth have to be committed to getting a trade and getting their education. But they don't have to have much of an education for logistics. They can get involved right away. And so, yes, North Carolina is going to be an exciting place to be, and Fayetteville is going to be right in the center of it. And I didn't even talk about Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty, but as long as we keep them happy, that's $1 billion a month coming into our economy. So, yes, North Carolina and Fayetteville have a bright future.
All right. Thank you. We will go to Ms. Green.
Thank you. I recently had an opportunity to visit Fayetteville Tech as part of the Home Builders Association trip. We were there to learn about the trade opportunities there for youth. I think it's real important that we understand that the building industry, development, all those pieces are missing those key skilled workers, and they can't find young people that are interested in going into that field. So as part of the Web Academy, a lot of those students are given opportunities to leave school, traditional school, and go to Fayetteville Tech and learn more about these trades and sit in on classes and start an apprenticeship. And then it moves forward once they graduate from high school. So that would be a great way for them to spend their time and address the issues and the shortages in skilled workers that we are facing. And the building industry is a large provider of those jobs. So that's a very key point.
Okay. Mr. Hondras.
Thank you. Already mentioned FTCC with their cyber logistics and their trades. FSU also is in the cybersecurity space. Methodist, of course, with their medical. The mayor has a Next Gen Workforce Committee. They partner. The short answer is the city cannot do it all alone. We need our partners. So with all the partners named, FCDC, home builders, the realtors, partnering with Cumberland County Schools, they're attempting to build the groundwork to build a pipeline. So fresh out of high school, someone that may not be interested in going to the university can explore trades and some of those other fields at Fayetteville Tech. Those that do want to go to higher university like Methodist and FSU, they have those opportunities here locally. In the state of North Carolina, we have one of the best in the nation university systems, also one of the best in the nation community college systems. So again, that's the attempt, the goal of the mayor's Next Gen Workforce. He's pulling in partners from FCDC, from Cumberland County Schools, from those higher education institutions, again, with partners like the home builders that are helping establish programs at Fayetteville Tech for the trades, other partners that are establishing. Fayetteville Tech recently just announced they're building a truck driving facility in the western part of the county off of Cliffdale Road near 295. So all of these things, while they will not be here necessarily today or tomorrow, they're in the works, and in the near future, as these students that are currently enrolled in school in Cumberland County schools today, as they graduate, they'll have options so that whether they go off to school or go to school here locally, they can come back home and get a job in multiple fields. A lot of times we're training the workforce for jobs that won't exist by the time those folks enter the workforce. I think these programs, the momentum we have in place now as we're moving forward, we're trying to create opportunities for schooling and education. A lot of it's not a 4-year degree, it's certification for fields and jobs that will exist when they graduate and into the future. So I think the groundwork's already being laid.
Okay, thank you. So, as an elected official, you are elected to speak for the people, regardless of whether they voted for you or not. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process for the city of Fayetteville? And we will start with you, Mr. Hondras.
Thank you. It was mentioned previously already about boards and commissions. The city of Fayetteville has about 26 various boards and commissions, from planning and zoning to there's a woodpeckers advisory board, there's stormwater advisory board. There's just about one for anyone's interest or passions. I'm a big advocate of those boards and commissions. You get a lot of institutional knowledge on how different departments of the city operate, as well as different programs. So whatever your passion is, you can go to the city's website, look at the various boards and committees, commissions, Parks and Rec. There's economic development. There's various. One for everyone, I like to say. So I always encourage residents to find one that appeals to them and get involved. Obviously, your community watch meetings and homeowners association meetings are also platforms, but just being involved with a lot of nonprofits, from Salvation Army to economic development to home builders to realtors. I mean, I'm out there in the community on the street, just kind of meeting people where they are. So from ribbon cuttings to seminars to other educational workshops, I mean, we're out there trying to engage them wherever they are.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Green.
I think that when I started after college and really started working, one of the things that I first started doing was service in our community, and it really led to this point right now. I had a lot of experience with Fayetteville, what was then the Fayetteville Area Economic Development Corporation, and I served on the Existing Industry Committee as one of the first committees I came out of, and I really had an opportunity to learn and grow, and I learned the difference between existing industry and recruitment of new industry and how it all worked. And I think it is definitely about getting residents involved at that level, committee levels, whether it's with the city or whether it's with a nonprofit or whether it's just some arm of the community. And you begin that conversation, and then they understand the process you go through to make those decisions and how you budget and how you plan.
Okay. Mr. Dawkins.
Well, the question was, how can folks get involved, and what do we do as members of city council to make sure they get their voice heard? So a couple things right off the bat. Number one, the second Monday of every month is our first official council meeting of the month. We have a work session the first Monday month, and then the next Monday is when we have our public forum. So we get speakers every single public forum. They get 3 minutes. So that's one way you can get your issue out in front of the public, because we have thousands of people who watch our meetings. Secondly, being on the council for a total now of 8 years, I average about one new issue Monday through Friday. Now, sometimes I get some on the weekends, but when you add it up, it's about 250 issues every year. Over 8 years is 2,000 issues that I've been involved with. So what my job is to get the issue from the constituent and then get them to the right person at the city who can get their issue handled. So if a citizen has an issue, they can get hold of me in a number of different ways. But right now, if they wanted to, Dawkins, DAWKINSFOR, council@gmail.com. That's one. Presently, I'm the mayor pro tem, so they can send it to Johnny Dawkins at fayetteville.nc.gov. So I'm always happy to help, and that's my job is to serve the citizens of Fayetteville. A lot of it's experience. I led the Chamber of Commerce as chairman. I've led the Military Affairs Council as chairman. I've served on the Fayetteville State Foundation Board, the Fayetteville Tech Foundation Board, the Care Clinic Foundation Board, the Fayetteville Urban Ministry Board. So there's lots of boards. So I'm able to connect people quickly to their needs. Just this week, I got a friend's dad in for brain surgery at Duke because I sit on the Duke Cancer Center Board of Advisors. So there's a lot of ways we can help, but we need community involvement. So when you have an issue, you can contact Johnny Dawkins. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to talk about elections. So in 2018, the issue was put before voters as a referendum, and nearly 65% of voters rejected the measure. A public hearing was held in April of 2023, where a former councilman and councilwoman spoke against term limits. So are you in favor of increasing term limits? And if so, if not, what's your position on the issue of term limits? We will start with Ms. Green.
Well, I am for term limits. I believe that we all should have the opportunity to serve. And when someone serves an excessive amount of time, then that prohibits other people from serving. Service to the community is very important. It allows for everything to flow more frequently and in a greater way. I'm not caught up in what that looks like particularly as far as there are people that have very distinct ideas about how many years you should serve, how much each term limit is, each term is. I'm not so much caught up in that is that there is a rotation process. I do think that we should have, I think that we should have the discussion about staggered term limits. I'm not exactly sure what that would look like. And again, I think you would have to make that decision as you discussed the different ways to make that look. There are just so many different options. So I am for term limits. Staggered term limits maybe, but it would just depend on how that fell in the scope of what was being discussed at the time.
Okay. Mr. Dawkins.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, first off, I voted against the 4-year terms on council. That's number one. Number two, we get voted on every 2 years. The county commissioners get voted on every 4 years, but the state of North Carolina, the House and Senate is every 2 years. The Congress is every 2 years. So folks, if they get mad at me, they can vote me out. So therefore, I'm not interested in term limits on the city council because we get voted on every 2 years. So if I do something wrong or make a lot of people mad, I could get beat. There's no doubt. So that's why I work extra hard. And by the way, I don't know if we'll get to it, but I do not support the sale of PWC. So I want to get that, make sure I'm on the record. And
We'll talk about
oh, good. All right. Well, I jumped a little bit ahead. I'm not sure of all the questions. So thank you, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Hondras.
Thank you. Yes, I think the item we had that we discussed earlier this year was actually for the terms, how long, the length of the terms, which the proposal from a colleague was to extend the terms from 2 years to 4-year terms. While I did initially support the measure moving forward for staff and for us to revisit and have a larger conversation, the only way I could support that measure is if it went before the voters in the form of a referendum. We knew later that was in the spring. We knew this fall we would have elections again. So if there was a consensus on council to put it on the ballot this November, I was okay with that. But to extend terms from 2 years to 4 years unilaterally as a board, I would not be able to support that. So ultimately, we voted it down. And as far as term limits, there's a pro and con to both. If we were going to do term limits here locally, I don't know that they're necessary, but I think it would be more than 2 year terms. I think 4 years. The president serves 2 4-year terms, 8 years total. If it was something in the 10 to 12 year range, I mean, that might be something. But I think the voters here locally, and that was proven by the speakers that came out to address us on the potential for extending terms to 4 years. They like the 2 year terms. So if they have, as was mentioned earlier, if they have the opportunity to vote us out or vote us back in every 2 years, that's kind of the check and balance. So with that in place, instead of having 4 year staggered terms, the fact that we have 2 year terms, I think that lessens the need for term limits because the electorate, the voters, decide every 2 years who they want. So if they feel like their representative is doing a good job, they can continue to support them. And if they feel like they're not, they can move on to something else. So with the 2 year terms, I think it's less important to have term limits.
Okay, thank you. So we will go to the question of PWC, and we will start with you, Mr. Dawkins.
Oh, okay.
So there's been a lot of discussion in 2021 about Bernhardt Capital Partners purchasing Fayetteville's Public Works. An article that was written on May 7th, 2021 by Abby Church of the Fayetteville Observer, and I quote, "From PWC's perspective, BCPM has not established the transparency and trust necessary for PWC to continue discussion on valuation of this significant financial transaction that would potentially have had implications for decades to come." So the question is, how would you support transparency in city governing that directly impacts infrastructure? And would you agree to sell PWC or allow a management group to handle the affairs of PWC?
No, I'm not interested in selling PWC. I've been advised by the city attorney that it would require a vote of the people. So if that's the case, I really don't think the people of Fayetteville would want to sell PWC. In my opinion, PWC is worth about $1.5 billion. That's a lot of money. The folks in Wilmington, New Hanover sold their hospital for $1.5 billion. So if there's a way that all of that we could get $1.5 billion and it could be structured, I'd be willing to look at a possible lease, say, of 30 years, but it'd have to be at least $1.5 billion, and there had to be incentives in there. So where the city of Fayetteville, the citizens of Fayetteville would get a percent of anything, say, over 6%, because that's what these folks want. They want to be able to make 6% on their money. So if we made 10% each year, then the city of Fayetteville should get a third of that, and then PWC should get a third for capital investments, and then Bernhardt could get a third. But they told me they were not interested in offering anywhere near $1.5 billion, so I'm not interested in dealing with them.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Green.
Yes. I have served as a PWC commissioner. I feel that the two gentlemen I'm sitting here with tonight have a lot of experience on the council. So they are a little more in tune to what maybe was before them during this last round of sales. However, I do not support selling PWC either. Do I think at some point, at some time, there might be some scenario where it could be sold? Maybe. There's all kinds of scenarios. There's all kinds of things being discussed. The biggest point to me is that board of commissioners is voted on and appointed by the city council, and they are put in place to operate separately for a reason. They're an autonomous board, and that needs to stay that way so that they can have the business decisions and make decisions outside of the council that need to be made. So that's the important piece to me, that that board remain the way they've structured it, so that good decisions are made and business decisions are made in conjunction. Not saying that the city council doesn't have a right to have a conversation, just that they handle that until a certain point in the process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hondras.
Thank you. So I've lived in Fayetteville all my life, 47 years. Just got elected 14 months ago or so. So for 46 or so years, as a Fayetteville resident, taxpayer, and PWC ratepayer, I always appreciated my local government and my utility being separate. In the last 14 plus months since being on council, that really opinion hasn't changed. The mayor also appointed me as the PWC commissioner liaison to city council. So as an ex officio non-voting member, I do sit in on their meetings. And again, sitting in with that board and those professionals there, that staff from PWC, I still appreciate the fact that my local government, our local government, and our local utility, our hometown utility, are separate. Now, as was mentioned, other counties and local municipalities have sold assets, hospitals and airports and different assets. Again, being in the commercial real estate space, I get clients that want me to go after properties that aren't for sale and vice versa. A lot of times we get unsolicited offers for assets. So I've said before that PWC is a golden egg laying goose, and you only get a chance to slay that golden egg laying goose once. So generally speaking, no, I would not be in favor of selling it. An operation agreement or lease agreement where investment company or some kind of partnership comes in, equity partnership, and manages it for 30 years, I think potentially could be even worse than a sale, because they're looking at profits, and what they're probably not going to do is reinvest in the infrastructure. So 25, 30 years later, when that agreement or that arrangement ends, you're going to have a utility worth less because your infrastructure is probably going to be less. Again, as a local and as a PWC ratepayer, I appreciate every act of God, hurricane, storm, snowstorm, winter storm, whatever we get. Typically, my power is pretty reliable, and if and when it's knocked out, it's usually restored pretty quick. This past December, we had
That's your time, Mr. Hondras.
all right, I could go on forever.
For days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, this is our final question of the evening for you all. And it's simple. Why are you the best candidate to represent your district? And we will start with you, Mr. Hondras.
Thank you. Well, I've only had the pleasure of meeting my opponent twice for about 30 seconds, but I try to, when things are of importance, I try to show up and go represent whichever body, in this case, city council, as a candidate for them. But if it's whatever board I'm serving on at the time, I try to go out and do whatever it is in the community we're doing that day, the event or whatever it is. But I think experience is important. Even though we've had an abbreviated term, I like to call my class, we're freshmen, our first term serving was abbreviated instead of the typical 2-year term, because last year's election was delayed. The previous council got to serve 7 extra months. So instead of 2 years, we're only getting 1 year and 5 months. I feel like in that short time, I've been able to gain the institutional knowledge of having a full 2-year term. So moving forward next year, I can spend less time learning about procedures and processes and just hit the ground running. We already have some good things in place. Look forward to seeing them to fruition.
Miss Green.
Yes, thank you. I am a collaborative person. I like to work collaboratively with others. I've shown that through my experience in business and on boards, that I can do that. As a business owner, I've had to manage people, manage clients, manage customers, and manage budgets. I think all of those things are important. And I would like to bring a fresh voice to council, one that has a history of working working together, and it's and showcasing my skills. I think I have the skill set to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dalton.
Thank you, ma'am. I own property in Fayetteville. I pay property taxes in Fayetteville, and I pay property tax on my personal residence. I've done this for over 42 years. And I live and work in Fayetteville. I've owned a business for over 25 years in Fayetteville. And if you remember one thing, I never voted for a property tax rate increase ever in the 4 city budgets that I've had the privilege to vote on. The other thing is my experience, my leadership in working with other council members. They elected me the mayor pro tem, so I work very closely with the mayor, Colvin, Monday through Friday. We give each other a break on the weekends. But then my vision, the focus on, getting better paying jobs, working on driving down our crime rate. All those things are important and matter, and bringing good paying jobs here. So thank you for considering the vote, and I'm asking for your vote. Johnny Dawkins for Council District 5.
Thank you, and this concludes our forum. One more.
All right, we'll see you all in the morning.
All right, and we're back, and we're with our final forum of the evening with Mr. Freddie De La Cruz, who is running for mayor. Mr. De La Cruz, go ahead and introduce yourself to our watchers out there this evening.
Well, I want to thank the Upzone and also Ms. Williams for the opportunity to be able to share my story. I'm a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. My name is Freddie De La Cruz. I am running to be the next mayor of Fayetteville. I'm a business owner. I'm a family man. And I've been in the area since 1975. After my dad retired from the military, we moved into the Cumberland County, Spring Lake. And when I turned 24, I joined the Army. And after retiring, we bought a wedding store on Bragg Boulevard. And I've decided to run for mayor because I have a passion for helping people. And I feel that as the mayor of Fayetteville, I can leverage that position to help more people. And so I'm excited, that I made it, through the primary into the general election, where I have another opportunity for people to go out and vote. And I'm asking the people that are listening to this show to go to freddyformayor.com, do your research. I have a few videos there that discuss some of the issues you may be interested in. It also covers my background, and you'll be able to find out more information about Freddie.
Okay. So let's talk about the elections. So the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center has prepared a report called Paying for Elections in North Carolina. And it just basically states that North Carolina requires local governments and specifically the counties to fund election administration. There is a note in the report where researchers have made a comprehensive review of election cost. Particularly in 2000, they found that administering an election averaged the equivalent of $17.82 per voter. And this is nationwide too. And it's been adjusted for inflation. Would you support changing the election cycle from an odd year to an even year to help cut costs and to hopefully increase voter participation?
Absolutely, yes. And the reason why I say that this is my second time running to be the mayor. The first time, I got a large percent of the votes, but it was very taxing. Running for mayor, you've got a bigger scope, and you have to get out and talk to a lot more people and engage yourself. And there's a lot of people that campaign and help you try to become the mayor, as well as other candidates are running for office, and it's taxing on them as well. And then in Fayetteville, as you know, we have a primary, and then we have a general election, which, it's back to back. And then, 4 months later from now, you're going to have another election, a state election, a federal election, where you have your state and congressman running. So I do believe that we need to make it on the even years, the same as the congressional and the Senate and the presidential run. So, that way, it's less taxing on a lot of the people that are campaigning, and then you're going to have a higher voter turnout to really get a true gauge of what the people believe and what they want for their community. As you know, this election, we had 8.5% of the people come out to vote, which is pitiful. It's ridiculous. And that is not a true assessment of what the people want in Fayetteville. They're just not out voting. And so I think by changing it to an even year, that will be very helpful for that purpose.
Absolutely. And while we're talking about that, back in 2018, 65% of the voters who voted in the municipal elections voted against increasing term limits for city council. What's your position on that?
Well, my position is my personal belief, okay? I believe that term limits are absolute, okay? I don't plan to be the mayor for more than 6 years when I do get elected. 2 years to really establish some of the things I want to see the direction the city go into, another 2 years to kind of walk through that process to see that it's actually coming to fruition, and then the last 2 years to kind of close the gap and let somebody else prepare somebody else to come over to take over reign of the city mayorship. I don't think that homesteading a position is a good idea for the city. I think that you do your duty. 4 to 6 years is probably a good amount of time to be on city council before you move on to the next level. In the military, we're changing jobs every 1-2 years. The max you probably do one job is 3 years. I spent 32 years in the Army. I commanded, a battalion. You get 2 years, 3 years, and that's about all you get for command. You move on to other positions, and you let somebody else come over and start working the things that you started.
Okay. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about one of the issues that's kind of a hot topic here in the city of Fayetteville and really across the country as cities are dealing with homelessness in their cities. The city of Fayetteville just opened up the new Day Resource Center for the homeless. It is reported that the city spent about $7 million on the facility, but it's a one-stop shop for people who are at risk or currently experiencing homelessness. How do you propose the city address homelessness in the city?
Homelessness, is a problem, not only in Fayetteville, but it's a national problem, as you know. It's not something that's going to just go away, because you're throwing money at it. It takes the community to be involved with this process. And I'll tell you, the number one thing that I would do as the mayor is I would work very closely with the county commissioners, as this is their responsibility. The homelessness problem is really a county responsibility, and we should work very closely with the county commissioners to see what they're doing about the homeless problem, and then leverage the assets that we have in the city to help the county with that problem. As you mentioned, the city spent $7 million for the resource center on 128 King Street. If you go by there and look at it, I don't see $7 million worth of real estate being for that purpose. Now, the facility itself does provide services, but you could have gotten a building that cost maybe $500,000 to provide the same services. And this facility does not have the what the homelessness need the most, and that's temporary shelter. Now the city's thinking about spending $3 million for renovating a hotel, and then you got the county spending $15 million over off B Street, and the groundbreaking is coming up here soon to have a homeless shelter as well. So now you've got, within Cumberland County, $25 million to take care of the homeless, and I think that's really it's not a good expense of our tax dollars. I would say that as the mayor, you need to work with the county when it comes to the homelessness problem, and that's the problem that we have in our city, is that we're not working with the county commissioners when that's something clearly is their responsibility. And as the mayor, I would work with the county to solve that problem.
Okay. So Governor Cooper, by way of an executive order, created the North Carolina Office of Violence Prevention, which will be located in the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. By coordinating efforts across the state, agencies, and partnering with local leaders, the new office will focus on reducing violence and firearm misuse in North Carolina. What would you do in your role to reduce gun violence in Fayetteville?
Well, I have several ideas on gun violence, particularly youth gun violence. I think that one of the main things that we need to do, as the mayor, I understand that education falls under the sphere of the county, but I would actually address this issue with the school boards to see if we can include gun safety classes in the school curriculum, a class on gun laws, and then the consequences for carrying concealed weapons in the schools. I think that by educating our youth, with what guns can do to the human flesh when a bullet actually strikes a body is something they need to know this, because right now we got a problem in our city, and kids are carrying guns. They're out there. I know this. I drive a limousine, and I actually drive some of these youth around kids, and they're carrying guns. And I ask them why, and it's because they're being threatened by other people who would probably use it on them, so they want it for protection. So I think education is key to reduce the gun violence. We need to get the parents involved, with the youth. If they know their kids have a gun, they need to make sure that they somehow get it away from them. They got to reduce crime by taking these guns away from these kids.
Okay. So the My Future North Carolina 2 Million by 2030 reports North Carolina rates of opportunity for youth were similar to the national average, which was about 12% of people who are age 16 to 24 were not working or employed in 2021. Both in North Carolina and nationally, with North Carolina rates of opportunity, you've fallen slightly below the national average. North Carolina at 12.1% versus nationally 12.4%. So what ideas do you have to employ our youth year round? Because you talk about gun violence and leading youth in a different way. And with your ideas, where do you propose the resources of funding come from for programs for youth?
Well, for the youth, one of the things, and I agree with Charles Evans on this one, he had mentioned it, and I thought it was a great idea, was we need to include job curriculums, give them credit for doing work during school, as a credit, so they can do interns with local businesses. For example, I own a business, and I'd be willing to hire, students at, minimum wage to get them started, to train them, and also do some intern and paid jobs for them. And we've got a lot of businesses that will do that in Fayetteville, I'm sure. We just have to develop a program, if one doesn't already exist, where we can engage the businesses to hire some of these youth, the 11th, 12th graders, give them time to go to work and give them credit for working. And we also need to bring back, different trades in not only in the schools, auto mechanic, teach them basic HVAC, plumbing, electrical, those type of jobs that are high-paying jobs. They don't really require a 4-year degree. They just need to go to get a 2-year degree, get a certificate, and they could be making 60, 70, 80,000 plus a year on those type of jobs. So I think we need to work with the county, as the mayor. Education is something that's responsible for the county. So I would work with the county and kind of shape that through dialogue, what my ideas would be to help that for our city. That's one of the things I would do.
Okay. So this is gonna be the one last question after this one. But in 2011, October 11th of this year, the Fayetteville Observer reported that a Fayetteville police officer was arrested after an anonymous tip uncovered more than a year of alleged conspiracy, including the discovery of marijuana in an apartment that he allegedly used to store and sell drugs for 2 months before he was sworn in as an officer in 2022. In May of 2023, the State Bureau of Investigations found a preliminary investigation that a Fayetteville police officer and his wife were found dead was a murder-suicide. In January of 2019, a Fayetteville officer was facing criminal charges involving a juvenile apparently shot and killed himself in Wilson County. The mental health of police officers can spill over into their professional career. What do you propose the city do to help officers deal with their mental health and thereby protect the citizens of Fayetteville?
Well, training is always helpful. We've got to get professionals out there that understand how to deal with mental challenges that people have. Everybody has problems in their lives, okay, and they're different situations for everyone. But one of the things that I would do as the mayor, number one, One of the things I looked at doing is increasing the pay and benefits for our police officers, not only the police officers, but our fire and EMTs. And the reason why I say we need to increase their pay and benefits is because this is going to allow us to be able to select quality force as opposed to taking anybody that just graduated from an academy and hiring them and putting them on the force because we are short police officers and we just want to fill numbers. I think if we are able to give our police officers a better pay and benefits, that we'll be able to hire a quality police force. And then those that are challenged with holding the standards of being a police officers, we can just let them go and just let them, just fire them, basically, get them off the force if they're not meeting the standards. Treating people with dignity, respect, community policing, and just doing what's right. And that's a problem. Okay, if our police officers are not doing what's right, we need to get rid of them. And the fact that we're short police, I believe that they're not letting them go for that reason because they need them on the force to do the patrols and stuff like that. So that's one of the things I would do. Is exactly that. That would help a lot.
Okay. And then our final question of the night, tell us why you are the candidate for mayor.
Well, Ms. Williams, Freddie is not about Freddie. Okay, this mayorship for me is about helping people. Okay, I have a strong passion for helping people. That's what I do. And most of the people in Fayetteville that know Freddie, they know this about me. I just get excited when I'm able to help somebody. And I feel that if I'm the mayor of Fayetteville, that I can leverage the position as mayor to help more people. Okay, and I'm talking about the people who really need the help. I'm talking about the people who are getting up in the morning, catching a bus and going to work, okay, and then trying to figure out how they're going to get back home because the bus stopped. But yet they're still moving, they're making their way back home and they're going to repeat themselves over and over again. I want to help that person. I want to help that person that wants to go to school, okay? The person that doesn't have transportation to go to school, I want to help them get that transportation. Because one of the things as the mayor, what I want to do is I want to improve our transportation network that will help those people. So the passion that I have for helping people, I think is going to be beneficial. Also, I want to unify this city. I've been in this city since 1975. I ran the streets here, until I joined the Army, and my family's buried here in Cumberland County, and I've been coming back and forth, on leave for the last 45 years. Okay, and I want to see this city prosper. Okay, and I want to help the people in this city. And so that's why I think I'll be the best mayor. I want to unify the city. I think because of my Spanish heritage, I understand what the white community is saying. I understand what the black community is saying about what's going on in Fayetteville, and I believe I can unify and mend a lot of the things that are going on in the city. Okay, I think I'm the right candidate at this time. I don't think that after a while, when you're in a position for such a long time, you become complacent, okay? And that's a fact. And when you got time to start another business, like open up a club on downtown Fayetteville, okay, and you're the mayor, then you pretty much lost you're losing the battle when it comes to proving to the people that you're doing it for their best interest and not self-interest. So nothing wrong with starting a business. I own 4 businesses. I run 4 businesses. I own real estate. I'm a businessman. I help a lot of the young entrepreneurs here in Fayetteville silently, but they know who I am, and I do it a lot. And I just think that if you're in a position for a long time, you get complacent. And complacency in the military, we say complacency is not good. And that's why they rotate us all. And I believe that we need a new mayor to come up with fresh ideas, because there's a lot of ideas that are out there within the directors in Fayetteville, but they've already been heard and they've been stifled. If you get a new mayor that comes in, those ideas are going to come back up, and they're probably the right ideas for the city. But since we're moving in a direction, in a narrow direction, that the only person that's driving that direction is the mayor, then nothing's going to get done. We're going to get the same. And that's what people got to make a decision. Do we want change in Fayetteville? If you're looking for change, then vote for Freddie. Go to freddieformayor.com. Do your research. Ask questions about me. You can come to my store at 2739 Bragg Boulevard. You can come sit down and talk to me, and I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'll be very honest, fair, and transparent. So that's why I think I'll be the best mayor for Fayetteville.
All right. Thank you, and we appreciate your time this evening. That is it for us here at Upzone. Again, don't forget to go to the polls. Early voting starts on October the 19th through November the 4th. Have a good evening. Thank you.